sitting here.
Yeah.
You want to take your gavel?
Yeah, I think that-
Now we've got our second lecturer, Dr. Manchikati, who I think needs no further introduction. He's been up here many a time, you know him. Lax, big hand.
Thank you. Good morning. Getting close to be lunchtime, so you all want to go to lunch, right? So I want to finish it on time, and then hopefully we can have a nice lunch. So we are going to discuss about evolving concepts of evidence-based medicine. Is this like a holy writ or license to lie? This is actually similar to mid-course correction. We have been coming through the evidence-based medicine. We are at a new level now. At one time I thought, oh, that's the only thing in life. Now I'm wondering, is it a license to lie or holy writ? We came up with this title. My friend Senator Hutchinson gave me this book on License to Lie by Sidney Powell. So I thought, how am I going to use this title in our lecture for evidence-based medicine? And looking at so many systematic reviews and those things, so we came up with this title. Then I get a call from one of the professors saying that I should not be doing this lecture. I said, why not? Well, first he said I was not qualified to do it. Just because you started an organization and there are people who want to listen to you doesn't mean that you can do something like that. Okay, I have done some of the evidence-based medicine. Actually, I have done a lot more than he ever did in his life. Then he said it was racist. The title was racist. I didn't understand how the hell it can be a racist. Do you think this is a racist title? Anybody?
No. No.
Am I qualified to do this? So I asked, then I asked him, he said, well, if you're not going to take out. I said, are you going to coming to the meeting? He said, no. Have you ever attended a meeting? No. I said, well, okay, I will pay for your fare. Come and listen to me, and then decide if it is a racist thing or if I'm qualified to do this lecture or not. I don't see him here, so I didn't get a bill, so he wanted to know what makes me qualified. This lecture can be given in many formats. It can be Holy Grail or Poison Chalice or evidence-based medicine, a movement in crisis, the Holy Grail of the evidence-based medicine. Then there are articles on the Holy Grail of arts and health about randomized controlled trials. We can also call this, is it a gold standard or tarnished gold? So you need to buy these books and read all of them. These are really, really exciting books. Corporate medicine's corrupted instrument. So this is what professors do. They change the title and they have all these canned lectures and go and give a lecture. So we can do all these lectures with this same lecture with the different titles. Then we can call it scientific-based medicine or pseudo-evidence-based medicine. So that is probably what we are going to talk about. But I also want to say what Holy Writ is. We all know, you probably know more than me, most of you are Christians. There are a lot of others too, but it comes from the Holy Bible, writing or saying of unchallengeable authority. It is a sacred writing from the Bible or any other religion. We can get it from Bhagavad Gita or Quran or any other thing. But it has changed over the years. Now we have Old Testament, New Testament. different religions, subsects practice different things. My friend from Paducah wrote this book on explaining all these differences of religions and how we have been misled to understand them. King James I, he said he did not like the Testament, so he commissioned a new commission and asked them to revise everything so it will fit into his political correctness. All these moralist Christians were horrified, and then they started distributing their own testaments to American colonies. These are from British. But my Bible has been the massive influence on literature and history in the Western world, with sales of 100 million copies per year. So that is a big sales pitch. What is license to lie here? This is the exposing corruption in the Department of Justice. Department of Justice is supposed to protect us, right? You understand, you can be put in jail rest of your life, you can lose everything, or you can even be killed, even if you never committed crime. So the same thing happens with the evidence-based medicine. You can have these wonderful studies, and you come up with good evidence. Some reviewer says that there are all the defects in your evidence, and the procedure can be killed. So let us compare what is the evidence synthesis and prosecution. Requirement is that you need to have current, best available evidence. For prosecution, you need to have an open, rapid trial, that's misspelled, and Brady rule. How many of you know what a Brady rule is? Anybody? One? You know it or just lifted your hand? Brady rule is that if there is any evidence which helps the defense, prosecution has an obligation to give it to them so the defense can get off the schedule, off the hook. But they don't do that at Department of Justice. They haven't done. The best case scenario is the Ted Stevens, senator. They went after him for saying that he took a gift from someone, which was all ridiculous. And he lost his Senate seat, and then he got killed in an accident. His whole life was gone. The same thing happened to several others, even for Enron executives, Arthur Anderson. They were all put out of business because of the overzealous prosecutions. The only one thing which has been proven beyond any doubt was the Ted Stevens. It was ruled in the court and they withdrew the case. The prosecutor, who was the chief investigator in the case, killed himself. So that should tell us something. Instructions. We have qualitative and quantitative synthesis. They give the jury instructions. Abuse. There is a reviewer abuse and there is a prosecutorial abuse. Synthesis, it is inappropriate synthesis and withholding the evidence. Bottom line, we don't get a coverage, non-coverage, and maximum sentence. Presentation, no conflict, no conflict. Both of them say that we don't have any conflict, but they do have conflict. So I wanted to see what kind of genes these people have, prosecutors and evidence-based specialists. So 98% of them in China, they did a search, have a special gene. They all can find them. The same thing in the prosecutors. They say that, well, let us get a death sentence and let us kill this procedure. So that is the gene they all had. I guess it's not a good joke. It is for real. Then you can compare evidence-based with special counsel. It is like independence. For appearance, it looks very independent, but it's not really independent. Both goes the same way. Evidence, they are supposed to consider all the evidence. No, they don't. It is only the favorable evidence. Conflicts, appearance, no, but yes. Opposing views, they say that we took all the opposing views, they only add your references. Like when these APS guidelines came about and ODG guidelines, we went to Congress. They said, oh yeah, what? ASIP said we took all the recommendations and everything. Congressman Ed Whitfield is right here. He asked them, so what did you do with them? You added all those things. Yes, we did. Do you know what they did? They added all the references I gave. They didn't change the conclusion, they didn't change anything, but they added everything. So our aims today is to understand the value and premises of evidence-based medicine, understand new threats to the validity, understand appropriate dissemination, understand use of scientific evidence in medicine, understand how to avoid, confront, and combat these threats. So it is not just me. Look at the New England Journal of Medicine editor-in-chief. She said it's simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that is published or rely on the judgment of the trusted physicians or authoritative medical guidelines. Now, what did the Lancet's editor say? The heading of the title of the article is Medical Journals are an extension of the marketing arm of pharmaceutical companies. That is from Lancet. So purely evidence-based policy doesn't exist. This is what my friend Ramsin Binyamin showed it to me. Except for pure marketing purposes. It is a misnomer. It is misleading. It is inappropriate understanding of advancement of science, leading to inappropriate conclusions and policies. Evidence speaks for itself. How many times have you not heard this? Hey, read my article. It speaks for itself. Essentially, it is BS. The most reckless and treacherous of all theories is who professes to let facts and figures to speak for themselves, who keeps in the background the part he has played. So this is the conflict we don't know, or reverse conflict. Perhaps unconsciously, it doesn't matter. The damage is going to be done. 800 signatories, 800 statisticians wrote a letter to Science saying that we need to retire statistical significance. Let us be clear about what we must stop. We should never conclude there is no difference. If you look at all our studies, that is what it shows. There is no difference between local anesthetic and local anesthetic steroids. There is no difference between placebo and this. But they are not even understanding that placebo is a treatment. The drugs you are injecting do have some effect on them. Also, they then saying that no association just because p-value is larger than threshold of 0.05. So there are two articles here. Look at the top one, which has a very low p-value, and bottom one, which has a very high p-value, but results are the same. So p-value has no relevance at all. You look at the systematic reviews, it says actually 51% wrongly interpreted. I would say 92% are wrongly interpreted. This is only 49% correctly interpreted. It is much, much more than that. You have to sit down and read these articles deeply. It takes a lot of time. It is laborious. So we all know this. Medicine is a science of uncertainty and an art of probability, William Osler said. He also said, I'm so sorry to tell you that 50% of what I told you is accurate and other 50% is inaccurate. And he added, I don't know which 50% was accurate. Evidence-based medicine, neither good evidence nor good medicine. Significant does not mean important. Large trials doesn't mean much except that they show small differences. Real science means verification. Like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. That is what we need to do in the evidence-based medicine. We are treating people, not statistics. Crisis in evidence-based medicine. There is no quality mark. There is a lot of volume of evidence in few minutes I will show you how it is exploding. The significant benefits may be marginal or irrelevant in clinical practice. It may be good statistically, but not relevant at all. Inflexible rules and technology driven. We can't really have evidence-based guidelines for complex multimodal problems. This is Milton Packer. He writes all these nice articles. When did guidelines become holy writ or meta-analysis? A form of medical fake news. So fake news issue just didn't come up after President Trump got elected. It has been there even before that. Is journal peer review now just a game? Medical journals, a sluggish form of Twitter. So what are our learning goals today? To review the meaning and premises of evidence-based medicine, to define and describe pseudo-evidence-based medicine, to understand how pseudo-evidence-based medicine may not only be unethical, but it is also criminal. It is doing many, many things. It is wasting government dollars. They are taking the money, the taxpayers' money, to develop these philosophies, then obstructing the access to care and tarnishing people's images. To understand that PBM may be difficult to detect by practitioners. As I said, it is extremely difficult to understand what is pseudo-evidence-based medicine. You really, really need to study it. There are lots of motives why they do that. The primary motive is the money, of course. So we need to understand how to find it and how we can oppose it. Real evidence-based medicine depends on three factors: patient concerns, best research evidence, and clinical expertise. So if you combine all of them, it is a very small circle there. That is the only thing these people know. Most of the people who are doing these reviews, even though they have a different first name or author's name on there, they are students or research assistants. They really don't even know anything about the procedure at all. And even the chief reviewer doesn't know the procedure. So they review these things and they go ahead and publish them. Real evidence-based medicine also says that conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in making decisions about the care of individual patient. So instead of going through this whole thing, I just wanted to give you a break here. We will talk about, can we play the video please? It is easy to learn. So we have all this. That was much nicer than me talking, right? So evidence-based medicine, David Sackett, Gordon Goet, David Eddy. Now we have a lot of other people like Archie Cochran, and then Roger Chaw, and a few others I don't want to name here. So it has become evidence-based medicine, and meta-analysis is complicated news. If you start reading Richard Deyo, according to him, nothing works in the world. So I found his first article in 1983 and found the latest article in 2019. We are still talking about the same thing. Like Democrats are talking about Medicare for all, Republicans are talking about improving the competition. This thing is going on. Do you see any people, leaders there anywhere? I don't see anybody having individual opinions. It's all the party opinion. That's all they talk, nonsense. So we have conflicts of interest, reverse conflicts of interest, intellectual bias, or dishonesty, sophistry or compromise, preposition, vagary, rationalization, and congeniality of conclusion. So conflict of interest, everybody says, I have conflict of interest because I'm a practitioner. I'm doing the interventional pain management. But I say that they have confluence of interest or reverse conflict of interest. So just remember this, somebody who is getting paid for not understanding, and his salary depends on not understanding her salary, his salary. Ask him to understand. Why would he understand? So these people are providing all this negative evidence and they're getting paid for it. Why do you want to change? Let us go for it. The most entrenched conflict of interest in medicine is a disinclination to reverse a previous opinion. So preposition, vagary, this is most important for our evidence-based medicine. The intellectual art of piecing together valid evidence in such a way as to produce an invalid conclusion, that is rationalization, that is what they do most of the times. True evidence synthesis requires not only the methodological expertise, but also clinical expertise. So David Eddy, I don't know if he ever practiced medicine, maybe Gabor would know that, but he created this empire. He created, using these articles, some evidence which I said may be fake or real or whatever, and then he sold it to Kaiser Permanente. Evidence synthesis is based on study design, placebo or active controls, or no treatment. Placebo treatment is not the same as no treatment. Placebo is you are talking to a patient, you're doing a procedure, something, that's why you're creating the placebo action. I will show you another video in a few seconds. Systematic reviews are like fake news. So this is placebo versus nocebo. Can we play this tape, please?
This episode is sponsored by Dropbox. Hello, I'm Dr. Joseph Hansen, PhD. The following video about placebos has been scientifically proven to cure viewers of boredom, fatigue, dad bod, Star Wars overhype, chronic back pain, and a host of other common ailments. Now, open wide, it's time for science. On the North African battlefields of World War II, wounded soldiers were plentiful, but morphine was often scarce. Army doctor Henry Beecher needed to operate on an injured soldier, but had no drugs to give him for the pain. A desperate nurse grabbed a vial of salt water, filled a syringe, and miraculously, the soldier's pain went away. When Henry Beecher returned to Harvard University after the war, he found that a range of ailments, from gunshot wounds to the common cold, could be treated with fake medicine. It's known as the placebo effect, from the Latin for I shall please. So, what's in them? Let's turn to our chemistry expert friends from Reactions.
The perfect placebo has look, color, and taste of the drug is being compared to. Ideally, it contains all the inactive ingredients of the real pill, but doesn't include the active drug ingredients. That just leaves the other stuff that make up the bulk of the pills. These might include sugar, that's why placebos are often called sugar pills, cellulose from plants, cornstarch, or yeast, along with other common ingredients that bind the pill together, and others that help it break down in your stomach. Placebos used in big drug trials often contain, well, actually, we don't exactly know what these placebos contain. In a study called What's in a Placebo? Who Knows? Researchers went through over 150 trials involving placebos from 4 medical journals. Only 8% of the trials disclosed the placebo's ingredients. Although no 2 placebos are created equal, some of them get better results. For more on that, here's Joe.
A placebo capsule works better than a placebo tablet. Placebo injections work better than placebo capsules, and placebo machines work better than placebo injections. Even having a nice long talk with a doctor before taking a placebo can increase its effect. Taking 2 placebos is better than taking 1. Expensive placebos stamped with brands work better than cheap generics. Even putting them in fancy packaging or giving them fancy names can add to all of this. Clearly, the effectiveness of a placebo is tied to our perception of how sophisticated the treatment is. Even pill color can make a difference. Placebo sleeping pills work best if they're blue. Red placebos are better as stimulants or pain relievers, and yellow placebos make better antidepressants. I mean, it's pretty wild. One thing with absolutely no therapeutic value can work better than another thing with absolutely no therapeutic value. Some placebo effects are easy to explain. I mean, sometimes people just get better, but we can't just write them off as fake psychological tricks. Placebos can lead to very real chemical changes in our bodies. They can cause the brain to release its own natural pain-killing chemicals. They can even improve symptoms in Parkinson's patients by releasing dopamine. It seems like where placebos do work, our higher order brain functions are in play, like when they relieve pain, reduce stress, or even change our moods. But they have limits. They can't shrink tumors or cure infections or regrow limbs. These days, before drug companies can sell a new medicine, they have to test it against a placebo. The idea is pretty simple. Give one group of patients a sugar pill or something, and one the real drug. See what happens. Subtract the placebo group's improvement from the other group, and we should see if the drug has a real effect. Simple, right? But strange things are happening these days. Even with all our advancements in science, more and more drugs are failing to pass the placebo test. It's as if the placebo effect is getting stronger. In countries like the United States, drugs can be advertised directly to consumers.
Do you feel healthy, happy, and comfortable? Are you not suffering from headaches, indigestion, or irritability? A lack of symptoms may be a symptom of antohypochondriasis, commonly known as invisible illness disorder, or IID. But now there's Contradictol. Contradictol brings hidden ailments to the surface so they can be treated with other medications. Ask your doctor if Contradictol is right for you.
All that marketing has increased our expectations of what drugs can do, and as a result, some old drugs like Prozac perform worse in placebo tests today than when they first came out. This growing placebo effect is making it harder to figure out which real drugs really work. And just in case you think this couldn't get any weirder, it gets weirder. In one study, patients were even told they were receiving placebos, and they still felt real results. It's likely because the doctors had told them that placebos often have healing effects. Clearly, the critical ingredient in a placebo is expectation. If they ever work, they worked because we expect them to. So much so that a fake drug can also make a patient feel worse if that's what they're expecting. By this point, some of you are probably asking, if placebos are so effective, why not use them as real medicine? Well, prescribing one thing but telling a patient they're taking a different thing is deception. And according to Hippocrates, little white lies like those are not okay. But many doctors think parts of the placebo effect can still be used without turning every practice into a carnival sideshow. I mean, if talking to your patients more can really make them feel better, then why not talk to your patients more? There's a lot we don't understand about how and why we sometimes get better. But in addition to all the amazing medicines we've got, it's nice to know the brain has some quality medical care built in. Next time you get sick, maybe you can find a little relief in knowing that the doctor is always in. Stay curious. Some of us take pills every day in the form of vitamins and supplements. If you've ever wondered what's in them or if they actually work, follow me over to Reactions and find out more. episode was sponsored by Dropbox. Whether you're designing, presenting, writing, or building, Dropbox makes it simple to work together.
So placebos even work differently in different countries. Some work in Germany, some work in America, some work in England, Paris. So they found the same drug which has more placebo effect in one country compared to the other country. So pseudo-evidence-based medicine, threat to survival of medicine, decreases access, decreases quality. This is just the opposite of Affordable Care Act. Increasing the access, increasing the quality, reducing the cost. I don't know how the hell that happens, but that's what they said. How can you increase the access and at the same time reduce the cost and increase the quality? So pseudo-evidence-based medicine can be defined as the practice of medicine based on falsehoods that are disseminated as truth. It is not new, it has been existent, we are just finding it out. It is corrupted evidence, corrupted dissemination of evidence. So explosion of systematic reviews. If you take in 1990, there were only like 32 meta-analyses and 5 systematic reviews. In 2018, 21,144 meta-analyses, 14,170 systematic reviews, just in 1 year. See how much difference that is. They look at the publications. Where are all these publications coming from? You look at any systematic review, like for neck pain, radiofrequency neurotomy, they say that only the study by Lord is the good one. It has 24 patients in the whole study, placebo and the treatment group. One study, there are no other studies acceptable. So I looked at how many systematic reviews have been performed. Remember, 24 patients. There were 49 systematic reviews reviewing that one study of 24 patients. Here, again, the systematic reviews of publications, USA still tops. But this is not that big a deal. How can you get a meta-analysis? I have a service for you here. Call and tell them that you want a meta-analysis on so-and-so subject, and you get it done. You just pay them. You get the results in 1 week. I will show you an example how that can look like. Number of journals in PubMed. There were only like 1,000 journals or so. Now we have 26,000 journals. So it is again EBM holy rate. Guidelines is a very difficult issue to prepare. It is easier to make sausage, they say. Look at the hypertension guidelines. What all it did was it said that 30% more people are hypertensives. It was all based on this controversial SPRINT trial, which was sponsored by pharma, with huge, humongous author conflicts. Stroke guidelines, they actually have to retract because of the conflicts of interest. Heart failure guidelines, the best treatment is never used based on the heart failure guidelines. Take your aspirin. They said 1 aspirin is good for you. Then they said, no, 2 aspirins are good for you. And now they are saying that it doesn't matter. You don't have to take aspirin. So these patients take aspirin and come to us. You do a cervical epidural injection, you get a huge hematoma. Why are they taking? What is the benefit? We don't even know. Coffee. They said coffee was not good for you. Now there is a huge study which says that people who survived the most were the people who had 8 cups of coffee per day. So this is how they changed the threshold. We have all these hypoglycemics admitted to the hospital because of the thresholds they have changed. Blood pressure, hypertension, first they said 140, then 90, 140 over 90. So that increased 35%, made so many people hypertensive. Now more recently, nobody is accepting this yet. They said 130 over 80. This is going to increase even 15% more people to be on hypertensives. Hyperlipidemia, cholesterol. I always tell this thing. My cholesterol was 210. I was fine when it was 220 as the normal. Suddenly one day I became hypercholesteremic. I started taking Lipitor. My whole body hurts and I have all these problems. So now they are trying to change it to 180. There is no proof for these things. Like this, we heard it this morning, just going on this low calorie, low carb diet may just reduce everything. IPM physicians, they're all always criticizing us. We are doing too many procedures, we are writing too many opioids, but we are also too expensive. There is no evidence. The CDC guidelines, they put out wonderful guidelines. CDC, I trust them for CDC. That is diseases, communicable diseases. But then they get into all these other things and start giving the opinions. Look at those things. The opioid deaths are still going up, but those are mostly illicit opioids. They don't correlate with prescription opioids. Prescription opioids are going down. There were like 240 million prescriptions before. Now there are 190 million prescriptions. But the deaths don't correlate with it. There were 3 waves of rise in opioid overdose deaths. These are all related to heroin and illicit fentanyl. They all started in 2010. What other thing started in 2010? Anybody know? 2013. These are the things. How do we blame these things, or who do we blame? Actually, prescription opioid deaths are going down. They're significantly down. From last year, if you just take the opioids without methadone, they went down about 11%. Just year to year, whereas fentanyl has increased substantially. Look at here, this will show. Fentanyl deaths have increased from 2000 to 2017, 3,540%. Just 40%, 47% increase in 1 year. Whereas heroin has increased substantially. Before 2009, the whole increase was only 208%. When you go to the opioids, 2000 to 2009, they increased 177%. 2009 to 2017, they actually declined 8%. Other day I received a call from 60 Minutes questioning me, my statement I made in 2000 in front of Congress that 4.6% of population of America consumes 80% of the global supply of opioids. They said they were going to interview me. Of course not. They did this in 2016 also. They call you and ask all the information and go with it. Opioids and THC combination. On one side we are saying THC, it will stop opioid usage and it will stop the opioid epidemic. On the other side we are saying that, well, you combine them, it works much better. So you really want to find out the holy grail of THC, you need to read that book. So CDC gave us the guidelines. CDC also reports largest US measles outbreaks in. Where is this happening? New York, Berkeley. These are the people most liberal, highly educated and everything. Why is it happening in those areas? Chicken and food poisoning. CDC guide, then they retract the CDC guidelines after everybody gets upset with it. They're not quite retracting, but they are saying that you can't really taper them that fast. Initially they said it was only for primary care. Now it became a rule and regulation and law for everyone, Board of Medical Licensure and everyone else. It really doesn't matter what they say now. It is good to read, hear, and look at them. In contrast, the rate of IPM services per 100,000 population is slowly declining. It is not increasing, it is declining. This major systematic review performed by Chow and Hashimoto said there is no benefit with epidural injections. Very limited evidence. So we introduced all these wordings a few years ago. Clinical significance. They were all saying that 2-point increase, decrease, and all that stuff. We got it up to, it should be more than 50% clinically significant, more than 50% relief or more than 50% improvement in function. nobody even talked about placebo and nocebo until we started talking about it. Now it has been a big issue. Pragmatic versus practical trials. There's efficacy and effectiveness. A retrospective study or a case report doesn't give you efficacy. You really have to have a placebo-controlled trial. But again, you need to understand there is a difference between no treatment group and placebo treatment group, active treatment group, 2 active treatments. So in these cases, you can do single-arm meta-analysis from baseline to follow-up, or essentially you are creating a no treatment group. So we did the first single-arm analysis. Jaya Sanapati did this one, and look at that. So if you look at these articles, there is no difference, and you can say that, well, they're not effective because these are all observational studies and there are no comparative groups. But with a single-arm analysis, you can show that there is 45% improvement with the pain and 30% improvement with the function. So we wanted to look at if sodium chloride solution, is it really a placebo when you put it in the epidural space? So when you do the dual arm analysis, there is no difference between the steroid or sodium chloride solution. So obviously they say that steroids don't work based on that, right? When you do the single arms analysis, steroids do work. They produce about 35% improvement even when they are combined with sodium chloride solution. Actually, I was thinking that steroids mixed with sodium chloride solutions didn't work for a long time. But this study proves me wrong also. This is my own study, but it proves me wrong. Then sodium chloride solution, that also produces significant effect, about 18% or so effect, or 21%. So 23% for steroids, 21% or 22% for sodium chloride solution. So is it a placebo? Nick did this analysis, beautiful analysis. So now let us look at the functional status. The same thing, in a dual arm analysis, there is no difference at all. In a single arm analysis, it's only 12% difference for steroids. It reduces or improves the functional status by 12%. Whereas sodium chloride solution increases only about 10%. It is not very significant, but at the same time, it is not producing any effect at all. Bupivacaine and steroids, I never thought that when you combine bupivacaine with steroids, they work. All the evidence was negative. But when we did this new analysis, there is a new study recently published, so it changed the entire thing. So bupivacaine with steroids does work better. When you do the single arm analysis, it shows that bupivacaine improves about almost 40%, whereas bupivacaine with steroids improves about 41% or so. Again, there is not much difference whether we use steroids or not. You're going to get pretty much the same difference. In a dual arm, it is somewhat deceptive. On one thing it shows totally negative, and some things it shows differently. And same thing with the functional status. It improves 26% with bupivacaine and 30% with steroids. It's not a really exciting improvement. It's just a mild improvement. Like it doesn't meet the 50% criteria. I can show you another study where you can misunderstand the results. This is a study published in Pain Physician. Actually, it was a replication of one of the studies I performed. So it shows that local anesthetic works better, right? The bottom one is the local anesthetic, L, the dark lines. If you look at that, local anesthetic is working better for function as well as pain. So we did the meta-analysis. So Nick did this analysis. Look at that guy. It shows that local anesthetic works better in this one. And there is another meta-analysis done. Here, they are showing the steroids work better for function, but for pain, they couldn't even do the meta-analysis, which Nick did. But in reality, this is what 50% improvement shows. The local anesthetic with steroids, lidocaine with steroids, did work better in this case. It is different results than what we produced, but it is great. So here we have another article here. It says 15 randomized controls were included in qualitative synthesis. And it also says that at 1 month, steroids were better, but I think I lost that one. The superiority of steroid and pain control was more prominent at 1 month, but diminished at 3 months to 1 year, showing no significant. There is another sentence missing. They said, started at 1 month and was sustained for the whole year. Here it is. Superiority of steroids was remarkable, especially at relatively short-term follow-ups, and maintained until 1 year follow-up. See how contradictory this is? Again, this is published in Pain Physician. We didn't catch this. And look at that. What did it say? 15 randomized controlled trials. What does this Prisma diagram show? Only 13 studies. How can you find only 13 studies, but how can you include 15 studies? Here we have this managing chronic low back pain secondary to lumbar spinal stenosis. So you see how many articles are on my name? About 6, right? 6 for function at 6 months, 12 months. I wrote only 2 articles on the subject. How did they include 6 articles if I wrote only 2 articles? So I published them as 3 different reports. We published 6-month results, 1-year results, and 2-year results. So they put all of the articles. So this is one, when you order meta-analysis from somebody, this is how it goes on. This is the same thing. And they also looked at the Friedli. Their study was only 6-week study, and they are showing us the results at 6 months and 12 months. This is another meta-analysis. This is pretty reasonable. So there is a lot of difference. You can take the patients who are responsive to your injections, like if they respond to first 2, then you repeat on them, then calculate the improvement. If you look at that here, the much higher number proportion comes into effect. But if you include all patients, even though they failed, your response goes down. The bottom one is all patients, the top one is responsive patients. Again, there is not really that much difference whether you just use local anesthetic or local anesthetic with steroids. This is lidocaine. The same thing happens with caudal, interlaminar, and transforaminal. My friend here, Candido, says parasagittal interlaminar is superior, but not really. They're all the same. They produce pretty much the same amount of results. Adhesiolysis, we have pretty good evidence for this. Look at this guy writes this beautiful article. It really looks beautiful. I tried to check what he does. He's a research assistant who did this study. He says that 10 reports were included, no randomized controlled trials on efficacy or cost effectiveness. He didn't do a proper search. We did calculate cost utility analysis based on a randomized controlled trial. They didn't do that. Then he said there were only 2 studies. However, both studies presented serious methodological flaws, and one of them was mine. There were 58 adverse events reported. I don't know where the hell he gets these numbers from. And he said he wrote me a letter, I didn't respond. He never wrote me a letter. We went back and searched the entire computer everywhere. There was no letter from him at all. And they put this in writing. So this becomes like a marketing, medical marketing. So then he concludes the evidence on the efficacy and cost effectiveness of adhesiolisis for treating a failed back surgery syndrome is non-existent. We should not use the word failed back surgery because the surgeons say failed epidural syndrome, failed back surgery, failed back epidural syndrome, all these things. So we should use post-surgery syndrome. We do have significant cost utility and cost effectiveness analysis done compared to surgery, spinal surgery, $115,000 per year improvement. Look at all those things. Spinal cord stimulation, 12,000 in Canada and 8,000 in England. And United States, we did all those studies. Everything for interventional techniques is less than 4,000. So how do we achieve the real evidence-based medicine? We have to provide ethical care to the patients. There has to be an expert judgment. We have to make shared decisions with meaningful conversations with the patients. Build on a strong clinician-patient relationship and provide evidence-based public health. So, as a prior speaker said, there is no truth, there is only perception. Thank you. Have a nice lunch.